3, 2, 1. Good afternoon. My name is Carolina Deupi, and today I'll be discussing how the presence of hegemonic masculinity within gaming has affected the perception of both femininity and queer expression. For context, video games have always been male-dominated, which has resulted in a specific kind of masculinity that, while having potential to be a positive form of expression, ultimately combined with hegemonic masculinity to create an environment in which femininity and queerness is deemed as inferior. It's important to recognize the inequities women already have to face in society, such as lower pay rates and a lack of respect, according to Mlambo Nguka. It's also significant to note that very few women and queer individuals choose to pursue gaming, whether leisurely or competitively, according to Kalalea. When these two factors combine, they allow for an environment in which hegemonic masculinity can fester and spread, which ultimately begs the question, how does the gaming community perceive both femininity and queer expression? When examined, it can be determined that hegemonic masculinity within gaming has resulted in a culture that allows for the sexualization and harassment of women, as well as a lack of representation for queer and feminine individuals. It is important to address what exactly hegemonic masculinity is before discussing how it has impacted femininity and individuals who identify with being LGBTQ. Hegemonic masculinity can be defined as the negative and socially aversive traits and behaviors associated with idealized societal masculinity norms. Hegemonic masculinity is said to be characterized by aggression, a lack of consideration for others, homophobia, a ceaseless interest in sex, attempting to control others, misogyny, as well as the devaluation of femininity, according to Van Dorn. And March. Several aspects of gaming have been founded in a way that continually perpetuates said hegemonic masculinity. This in turn has resulted in few women and queer individuals pursuing games, as it has been founded on and continues to be aimed at and made for cisgendered men. In terms of sexualization, Geguri, who is a professional female Korean gamer, would be a perfect example. She previously was the only woman in the Overwatch League. However, she had been accused of utilizing aim-assist software in a tournament by fellow professionals and fans alike. This eventually led to frequent harassment, resulting in her doing an interview and a live stream in which she displayed her game mastery as well as parts of her body. However, she wore a face mask. Rather than acknowledging her skill, many took issue with the way she expressed her gender. Several commented on her hair length, infantilized her, and sexualized her. One male commentator even asked if they verified her gender by checking her genitals. Similar to Geguri, Glisa was a competitive female gamer in the Overwatch League. During a game, she had spoken in a voice chat to communicate with her teammates, leading her to be verbally abused for the duration of the game, all of which she had recorded and posted onto YouTube to show the sort of harassment that women experience online. Her teammates claimed that she was not in a place to voice her opinions as she is a woman, assumed her to be ugly, and went as far to make rape jokes. Considering that video games are filled with heteronormative fundamentals, it is extremely hard for queer individuals to find any representation or safe spaces in the community. In fact, many have to alter their playing styles to avoid harassment or to feel more seen. Some may argue that several mainstream games feature LGBTQ characters, such as Tracer from Overwatch, who is pictured to the left. However, this could ultimately be considered as tokenism. Additionally, there are very few games that are explicitly or implicitly LGBTQ inclusive. For instance, Adrian Shaw, who is currently trying to make an archive of LGBTQ games, found that there are only 351 games with 500 examples of queer representation. While this may seem like a fair amount, when compared to the vast amount of playable games, in all actuality, this is very few. A trend within game design is to maintain the appeal to men while disregarding any traits that they would not find attractive. One example would be Buffy, whose design changed drastically between her show and video game. Although she remained conventionally attractive, her femininity and compassion from the show was not included in her character's design in terms of both her physical appearance and personality, as it did not appeal to the male gaze. Typically in video games, female avatars wear revealing clothes and portray unrealistic body standards. Although some may claim that this is a way to reclaim the free expression of sexuality, it occurs so often that it would not be contributing to such an effort, and it appears to be more of a fetishization of women rather than a form of empowerment. Another issue with game design would be the tropes involved, which tend to appeal to men and perpetuate sexist ideals. For instance, the shoujo trope, which originates from Japan, contributes to a culture of benevolent sexism. In contrast, the femme fatale trope, which is common in Western media, perpetuates hostile sexism. One of the most frequent ways in which women are harassed is through live streams. For example, Pokimane, who is considered by many to be the face of Twitch, has frequently been harassed online for her body and femininity, and she is subject to many crude comments on her body shape as she is curvy. According to Utarapong and contributing authors, she laughs it off, but often walks away from her face cam backward to avoid viewers taking screenshots of her turned around. In addition to sexualizing streamers, several male fans take issue with free sexual expression, deeming it as unprofessional or cheating. As stated by Ruberg, insults such as titty streamer are used when viewers deem women to be too sexual or to be using their body for views. Although said viewers make it a habit to comment on the bodies of female streamers, they harass those who freely express and feel comfortable in their own sexuality. To conclude, the presence of hegemonic masculinity within gaming has resulted in a culture that permits the harassment and sexualization of women, as well as a lack of acceptance and representation for those who do not identify with the gender binary, or with LGBTQ. Considering this is a systemic issue, a potential solution to consider would be employing the help of corporations who make the games, as they're heavily involved in the community. They could take initiative to support both female and LGBTQ content creators, which would increase their prominence within gaming. However, one limitation would be that this is a passive solution. Although it would help with inclusivity, ultimately it would not resolve the issue of hegemonic masculinity. Ideally, the most effective solution would be to reform surveillance technology. Although it may be difficult to reform those belonging to older games, enforcing stricter policies on moderation would help to decrease the harassment that feminine and queer individuals face. Additionally, a reform would help to decrease the sexist ideals that they unintentionally support, such as having strict guidelines on the clothing women wear, although men do not have such restrictions. According to Choi and co-authors, the reformation of surveillance in games offers an opportunity to shift the way in which we approach sexism in games as not beginning with fixed notions of male and female, but beginning with encounters of the gaming system. Not only would this help to resolve the issue of hegemonic masculinity, but the need for more programmers to adjust their surveillance systems could also potentially open up more spaces for women and LGBTQ individuals to become involved in the gaming community, which ultimately would also achieve the same feat as the previous solution. To conclude, reforming surveillance technology within games would be the most effective and feasible solution. And here are my sources. Thank you.
Okay, Carolina, thank you. I wanted to ask you a question. So how did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process?
So originally in my preliminary research, I figured I would aim towards more of a societal standpoint and more focused on specifically on femininity and jobs. However, when I examined this stimulus material more thoroughly, I saw a connection between esports and inequities, and I decided it would be a lot more interesting for me to go into that, so I adjusted my question to fit that.
Okay, and if you had more time, what additional research would you conduct related to this issue?
I would have liked to research more thoroughly into how exactly transgendered people are affected by the hegemonic masculinity within games, as well as gay men in specific, as they are men, and this directly affects them.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me close this.
We're done. So, girl,